Sarah Sanders said this morning on that.
Is the president open to a pardon for Michael Cohen?
I don't think that we're going to talk about hypotheticals that don't exist right now.
Is he sending Michael Cohen a message by talking about Jack Johnson and the Scooter Libby party?
That's something that's been on the table for quite some time.
It has nothing to do with Michael Cohen?
That call took place, I'm trying to remember, it was probably close to a month ago. So this is something that's been ongoing.
Why tweet about it this weekend then?
Because we're getting close to a second conversation on that front.
So it certainly could be that they are getting close to that pardon there, but it also could be the president reminding people about his pardoning power here. Of course, Sarah Sanders also asked if the president had received assurances from Michael Cohen that he's not going to flip on him or begin cooperating, but she said that she isn't aware of any conversations they've had since the FBI raided Michael Cohen's home, office, and hotel, John.
All right, Caitlin Collins at the White House. Caitlin, thank you very much. Joining me now, CNN political commentator Tara Setmayer and CNN political contributor Michael Nutter, former mayor of Philadelphia. Mayor, I want to start with you. The White House press secretary just refused to rule out the possibility of a pardon for Michael Cohen, the president's lawyer, who has had his office, his home, his hotel room raided and investigated by the FBI. The president also wrote at length over the weekend about Michael Cohen. It's pretty interesting to hear all of this talk, what has been ruled in and ruled out, no?
Sarah Sanders she was struggling. She was searching for some words. Her lips were moving, but it was very difficult to figure out what in the world she was talking about. I have no idea why Donald Trump, at the moment, cares about great boxer Jack Johnson, but I think the previous report alludes to the president is literally just floating out the words pardon and hoping that Michael Cohen receives the message. This is like a little bit of a Jedi mind trick here and trying to influence, quite frankly, what Michael Cohen does. The president should not count, I think, on Michael Cohen. I don't know Michael Cohen from a can of paint, but my impression is he's not built for prison, and with a young family, he's going to do ultimately what's in his best interest, or he should.
So Tara, the mayor here suggests Jedi mind tricks by the president. Possible. These are not the droids you're looking for. Inside the president's writing over this weekend, he's also criticizing some of the sources written about inside the New York Times article. And part of it here I want to read to you and get your reaction because I don't want to let it pass by. He talks about the New York Times and he says they use non-existent sources in a drunk, drugged-up loser who hates Michael. Now, I don't know for sure who the president is talking about right now, but Sam Nunberg is quoted inside Maggie Haberman's article, and there were questions about Sam Nunberg. He said he was on meds when he was speaking to Aaron Burnett. Should anyone be talking about addiction issues in that way?
Of course not. The president shouldn't be talking about a special counsel investigation, an ongoing federal criminal investigation into his personal lawyer. He shouldn't be talking about any of these things like this on Twitter. None of this is okay. None of it's normal. It's ill-advised, even legally. I don't know any lawyer worth their salt that would approve of a client discussing a case that they're potentially involved in this way, never mind the President of the United States. And then, yes, the insensitivity of drug addiction, or especially from someone that's claiming that the opioid crisis is a priority in his administration, to be so cavalier about that. I saw the Sam Nunberg series of interviews, and it was clearly someone who needs help. And to minimize that, it just goes to show you, excuse me, either he doesn't care, or that he's just so self-absorbed that it doesn't matter who he attacks in his ire when he decides to go on Twitter and throw a temper tantrum.
This morning, I want to add, Tara, the president has written extensively. He talks about the wall, wanting to build the wall again, talking about Mexico paying for it. It could be part of the NAFTA deal. Talks about sanctuary cities. Well, you rolled your eyes. I'm curious why you rolled your eyes and why you think the president is bringing that up this morning.
Because this is what he does when he's under attack, when there are other things coming up that are that hurt his presidency considerably. He goes back to his bread and butter, which is immigration, border security. Those are the issues, the wall. Those are the issues that helped propel him to the top of the Republican ticket during the campaign. He knows that gets his base riled up. So I'm not rolling my eyes at the idea of border security. I worked on immigration for many years in Capitol Hill. I'm a hawk on border security, but the way he does it, it's so flippant that, oh, now it's back to border security again this week. I mean, he does this when he's in trouble to deflect from what he's in trouble for, to get his base focused on what's over here instead of what's in front of them.
Mayor Nutter, I'm going to get in trouble for bringing this up now because we're going to talk about it later in the show. But Mike Pompeo is in trouble in committee, and the committee vote to confirm him to be Secretary of State. He could lose the committee vote. It will then go to a full Senate vote. In all likelihood, it will pass the full Senate because Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota and some other red state Democrats might vote yes. So you could make a case that he will become Secretary of State with votes because of votes from Democrats. And, you know, there are people who will criticize that in private, but should Democrats, if they don't want to see Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, be criticizing it in public? Are these Democratic senators letting you down, Mayor?
Well, Mike Pompeo has a whole bunch of issues in his record that, from my perspective at least, would disqualify him from being Secretary of State because of his previous service. I'm assuming that some of the Democrats that you're mentioning may be, anticipating some electoral concerns, but I think the vote for Secretary of State is one of conscience and should be as least political as possible. So, I mean, this will not be the first elected officials to, let personal interests, political interests intervene. But I think this is a serious position. Mike Pompeo should not be Secretary of State based on his previous service.
Tara, the president also criticizing Democrats for holding up not just this votes, but other votes as well, including the nomination for ambassador to Germany here. Do you feel as if Democrats are mucking up the system in a different way than we've seen in the past when partisan politics have played a role?
I don't think it's any different. I mean, this is a tactic that both sides use in the Senate, particularly when it comes to nominations. Unfortunately, this time around, the president has put up some questionable nominees that probably shouldn't be confirmed, and we've seen this in the past with some others going through the confirmation process. Either they've withdrawn or there's been some type of an issue. So I mean, but it is a tactic that both Democrats and Republicans use, especially when they're in the minority. And he did put out a tweet where he said, "Oh well, we need more Republicans so that this obstructionist these tactics can't happen." Well, all it takes is one senator to hold up a nomination, and so having more of one or the other doesn't really matter. All it takes is one. But he knows that most people don't know how the Byzantine rules of the Senate work, so it's just a political tactic to keep obstructionist Democrats. I mean, that's what you do in a midterm.
Tara Set, Mayor, I can't believe politics are at play here. Mayor Nutter, thanks so much for being with us. I do appreciate it. All right, ahead, more on what